The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a hiss that echoed through the vast hall. Captain Daewon Kim walked forward with steady steps, his dark uniform pressed and perfect. Behind him, Commander Heejin Park carried a slim data tablet, her face calm despite the butterflies in her stomach. Ambassador Tae-Yang Lee led them both, his silver hair catching the strange blue light that filled the chamber. The chamber was enormous. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that rose up like a giant amphitheater. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like living crystals. Their eyes followed the three humans as they walked to the center platform. Taewon could hear whispers in languages he did not understand. Some sounded like curiosity. Others sounded like amusement. High Chieftain Vormak sat on the highest throne. He was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with red scales that gleamed like polished rubies. His eyes were yellow and cold. Next to him sat General Silth, an insectoid creature whose chitinous armor clicked softly as she moved. Dozens of other species leaders surrounded them, representing civilizations that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. The humans request full membership in the Galactic Coalition, Vormak announced, his voice booming through speakers that translated his words into hundreds of languages. After 50 years of watching your species, we have decided to give you one chance to prove your worth. Tae-Yang bowed respectfully. We are honored by this opportunity, High Chieftain. Earth is ready to show what we can contribute to the galaxy. Then show us your military strength, General Silth clicked, her mandibles moving rapidly. In this galaxy, a species must be able to defend itself and its allies. What weapons have you brought? Hyjin stepped forward and activated her tablet. Holographic images appeared in the air above them. The first image showed a soldier holding a rifle. This is our standard infantry weapon, she explained. It fires metal projectiles at high velocity using controlled chemical explosions. The chamber erupted in noise. It took Daewon a moment to realize the aliens were laughing. The sound was strange and varied, from high-pitched chirps to deep rumbling chuckles, but the meaning was clear. They found human weapons funny. Vormak raised one massive clawed hand for silence. Chemical explosions? Metal projectiles? Tell me, Commander, what era is your civilization in? The Stone Age? More laughter rippled through the crowd. Heejin's jaw tightened, but she continued. The next hologram showed a missile. These are our long-range strike weapons. They carry explosive warheads and can travel at supersonic speeds. Explosives! Silth clicked in delight. How wonderfully primitive. Do you also use slings and arrows? The laughter grew louder. Daewon felt his hands curl into fists at his sides. He forced himself to breathe slowly and keep his face neutral. Showing anger would only make things worse. Hyejin projected more images: tanks, artillery, naval vessels, aircraft carriers. Each one brought more mockery from the assembled aliens. When she showed humanity's nuclear weapons, the laughter briefly stopped, replaced by something that sounded almost like pity. Energy yield weapons, Vormak said slowly, as if explaining to a child. You split atoms to create explosions. How quaint. He touched a control on his throne's armrest. A shimmering field of blue light appeared in the air. This is a basic shield generator, standard equipment for even our civilian transports. Your nuclear weapons would splash against it like water against stone. The radiation would be absorbed and converted to power our systems. You would literally be fueling our ships while trying to destroy them. The weight of those words settled over the human delegation, like a heavy blanket. Daewon had known their weapons were behind alien technology, but hearing it stated so plainly was different. He glanced at Hyejin and saw her jaw working, fighting to keep her composure. Perhaps, Tae-Yang said carefully, we could discuss other contributions Earth might make. Our culture, our arts, our scientific research in fields beyond warfare. Arts? Vormak interrupted. We have civilizations that have composed symphonies for 10,000 years. Science? We crossed the galaxy while your ancestors were learning to make fire. No, Ambassador. In the Galactic Coalition, strength matters. Power matters. Without the ability to defend yourselves, you are nothing but prey waiting to be devoured. A smaller alien in the third row stood up. He looked almost like a gray-skinned human with large black eyes. High Chieftain, perhaps we could offer Earth Protectorate status. They could serve the Coalition in support roles while more advanced species handled defense. Protectorate status, Tae-Yang repeated slowly. Which means? It means you would be under our protection, Vormak said with what might have been a smile. You would provide resources and labor. In return, coalition forces would defend your system from threats. It is generous considering your limitations. Daewon finally spoke, his voice low and controlled. You mean we would be servants, vassals? Vormak's yellow eyes fixed on him. I mean you would be alive. The galaxy is dangerous, Captain. Species with real weapons roam the dark spaces between stars. Pirates, raiders, empires that would crush Earth like an insect. Without protection, how long do you think your planet would survive? The question hung in the air. Daewon knew the answer, and he hated it. Without faster-than-light travel, without energy shields, without any of the technology that the Coalition took for granted, Earth was vulnerable. One hostile fleet could end human civilization in an afternoon. We respectfully decline, Tae-Young said quietly. The chamber went silent. Every alien eye turned to the ambassador. Even Vormak looked surprised. You decline? The High Chieftain asked. We decline protectorate status, Tae-Yang confirmed. Earth will not become a servant species. We came here hoping for partnership and respect. If that is not possible, we will find our own way. Vormak leaned back on his throne, studying the three humans with an unreadable expression. Very well. Your petition for full membership is denied. Protectorate status is denied. Earth will remain unaligned and unprotected. I suggest you return to your world and pray that nothing in the dark finds you interesting. Hai-Jin deactivated her tablet with a sharp motion. Tae-Yang bowed once more, his face showing nothing of what he felt inside. Daewon simply turned and began walking toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the now quiet chamber. As they reached the doors, he heard Silt's voice behind them. They still throw rocks and light fires, the insectoid general clicked. How adorable. I wonder how long they will last out there alone. The doors closed behind them, cutting off the wave of renewed laughter. In the corridor outside, Tae-Young finally let his shoulders sag. Hee-Jin leaned against the wall, eyes closed. Daewon stared at nothing, his mind racing. That could have gone better, Tae-Yang said with bitter humor. They humiliated us, Hai-Jin said quietly. Made us look like children playing with toys. Daewon was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was cold and determined. Then we prove them wrong. We go home, we study. We learn, we adapt. And if they ever threaten Earth or our colonies, we show them that rocks and fire can still win wars. The ambassador looked at him with surprise. You think we have a chance? I think, Daewon said slowly, that they have forgotten something important. They rely on their shields, their energy weapons, their ancient technology. They have not had to innovate in thousands of years. But humans? We have always been good at finding new ways to fight. Hee-Jin opened her eyes, a spark of hope visible in them. You want to develop countermeasures. I want to make them regret laughing at us, Daewon said simply. The three humans stood in that corridor for another moment, letting the weight of the task ahead settle on them. Then they began the long journey back to Earth, carrying with them both humiliation and determination. Behind them in the council chamber, the aliens continued their business, already forgetting about the primitive species with their chemical explosions and metal bullets. They would remember soon enough. The galaxy would make sure of that. 3 months had passed since the disaster at the Galactic Council. Lieutenant Bomi Choi crouched behind a boulder on Talos Prime, watching the sky turn orange with enemy fire. The colony world had been peaceful yesterday. Today it was hell. Contact 300 meters, Sergeant Jin Ho Kang shouted from her left. His rifle barked 3 times in quick succession. Bomi saw one of the Vraxian warriors stumble, blue energy crackling around its body as the bullets bounced off its personal shield. The creature laughed, a horrible chittering sound, and kept advancing. Private Sun Wu Nam pressed himself against the rock next to Bomi, his hands shaking as he reloaded. This was his first real battle. He was only 19, fresh from training, and his eyes were too wide with fear. Breathe, Private, Bomi said calmly, though her own heart was pounding. Aim for the legs. Sometimes you can trip them even if you cannot penetrate. The Vraxian horde had hit Talos Prime at dawn with no warning. Thousands of insectoid warriors had poured from dropships, their mandibles clicking with excitement. The colony's defense force numbered only 300 soldiers. They were vastly outnumbered and, worse, completely outgunned. Bomi's platoon held the mountain pass that led to the main settlement. If they lost this position, 10,000 civilians would be defenseless. So they held, they fired, they died, and they held some more. This is insane, Sunwoo whispered. Our bullets do nothing. Why are we even fighting? Jinho appeared next to them, sliding behind the boulder. His face was covered in dust and sweat. Because if we run, everyone dies. If we fight, maybe some survive. That is the choice, kid. Now shoot your weapon. Another wave of Vraxians charged up the slope. They did not take cover. They did not use tactics. They simply rushed forward, shields glowing, knowing that human weapons could not truly harm them. Bomi watched them come and felt rage burn in her chest. The aliens treated this like a game, like hunting animals that could not fight back. Focus fire on target Alpha, she commanded. Everyone shoot the one in front. 20 rifles opened up at once. Hundreds of bullets slammed into a single Vraxian warrior. The shield held, but the kinetic impact was enough. The creature stumbled, fell backward, and tumbled down the slope. The other Vraxians paused, confused. One of their number had fallen without its shield breaking. See that? Bomi shouted. They are not invincible. Keep firing! The radio on her belt crackled. All units, this is command. Enemy numbers are increasing. Evacuation of civilians is underway, but we need more time. Hold your positions at all costs. At all costs. Bomi knew what that meant. They were being asked to die here. She looked at her platoon, at the young faces streaked with dirt and fear, and made her decision. We hold, she said simply. The battle raged for hours. The humans used every trick they knew. They created crossfires. They collapsed parts of the pass with explosives, forcing the Vraxians to climb over rubble. They used grenades not to kill, but to blind and disorient. Slowly, painfully, they learned how to fight enemies whose shields made them almost invulnerable. Then the mocking began. Your bullets tickle our shields, humans. A voice boomed over open communication channels. It was translated by their suit computers, but the contempt needed no translation. Why do you resist? You cannot win. You cannot even hurt us. Lay down your weapons and we will make your deaths quick. Jinho spat on the ground. Tell them to come get us. Bomi did not respond to the taunts. She had learned in training that psychological warfare was just another weapon. The Vraxians wanted them to feel hopeless, to give up. She would not give them that satisfaction. By nightfall, Bomi's platoon had been reduced to 15 soldiers. They had started with 40. Bodies lay scattered across the pass, both human and Vraxian. The aliens had suffered losses too, though not from shield penetration. Humans had learned to use environment as a weapon. Rock slides, collapsing positions, anything that used force greater than bullets. Sunwoo sat with his back to a rock, staring at nothing. He had not spoken in an hour. Bomi sat down next to him and offered her water canteen. You did well today, Private. We are losing, he said quietly. They are right. We cannot hurt them. Why are we even here? Before Bomi could answer, a new sound filled the air. It was not the whistle of incoming fire or the roar of explosions. It was the deep rumble of human dropships, 3 of them coming in fast and low. Bomi stood, hope flaring in her chest. The dropships landed behind their position. The rear ramps dropped and figures emerged wearing Earth Defense Force uniforms, but these were not more soldiers. They were specialists, scientists, engineers. And leading them was Commander Hyejin Park, the woman who had been humiliated at the Galactic Council. Hyejin strode toward Bomi with purpose. Lieutenant, I need a situation report. Bomi saluted, then pointed at the pass. We have held for 12 hours. Enemy numbers are estimated at 5,000. Our ammunition is low, but that does not matter much since we cannot penetrate their shields anyway. Civilian evacuation is 70% complete. We need another 6 hours. Hyejin nodded, her face grim. You will have it. We brought something new. Behind her, soldiers were unloading crates from the dropships. They worked quickly, efficiently, setting up strange metallic spheres on tripods around the defensive position. Each sphere was about the size of a basketball, smooth and featureless except for a small display panel. What are those? Jinho asked, appearing at Bomi's side. Hope, Hyejin said simply. For 3 months, Earth's best scientists have been studying the problem. We cannot make energy shields. We do not have that technology yet, but we are very good at finding weaknesses. She gestured to the nearest sphere. These are resonance disruptors. They do not break through shields. They make shields stop working. Bomi stared at the device, then at Hyejin. How? All galactic species use the same shield technology. It was given to them thousands of years ago by a precursor race. No one ever thought to change it or improve it. The shields operate on specific energy frequencies. These devices analyze those frequencies and broadcast a counter signal. The shields destabilize and collapse, Jinho laughed, a sound of pure disbelief and joy. You found a way to turn off their shields. We found a way to level the battlefield, Heejin corrected. After that, it is up to you and your soldiers to do what humans have always done best. Adapt and overcome. The Vraxians attacked again at dawn, just as the sun was rising over Talos Prime's mountains. They came in a massive wave, thousands of insectoid warriors charging up the pass. Their shields glowed brightly in the early light. They were screaming their war cries, confident in their inevitable victory. Bomi stood on the front line, her rifle loaded and ready. Next to her, Sunwoo held his weapon with steady hands. Fear was still in his eyes, but it was mixed with something else now. Hope, determination. Wait for it, Bomi commanded. The Vraxians were 200 meters away. 100 meters. 50 meters. Hyejin stood behind them, her hand on a control tablet. She looked at Bomi, who nodded once. Now, Hyejin said quietly and pressed a button. The metallic spheres hummed to life. The sound was almost musical, a rising tone that made the air itself seem to vibrate. For a moment, nothing happened. The Vraxians kept charging, their shields bright and strong. Then, all at once, the shields flickered, wavered, and went dark. The battlefield fell silent, except for the confused clicking of the Vraxians. They stopped their charge, looking at each other in confusion. Their shields were gone. For the first time in thousands of years, they were vulnerable. Bomi raised her rifle. Open fire. The sound of gunfire roared across the pass like thunder. Bullets that had bounced harmlessly off energy shields now struck flesh and chitin. Vraxian warriors fell by the dozens, then by the hundreds. They tried to retreat, but the humans gave them no mercy. This was for every soldier who had died yesterday, for every civilian who had lost their home. For every moment of mockery and humiliation, the aliens ran. The mighty Vraxian horde, which had laughed at human weapons, broke and fled before a force 1/10 their size. Bomi lowered her rifle, breathing hard. Next to her, Sunwoo was crying and smiling at the same time. Jinho simply nodded, his face satisfied. Heejin walked to the edge of the defensive position and looked down at the bodies scattered across the pass. She felt no joy in the killing, but she felt satisfaction in the victory. Earth had been told they were primitive, too weak to matter, not worth respect. Now the galaxy would learn different. The battlefield had fallen silent, and in that silence humanity had spoken louder than any words could manage. The war had just begun. Dr. Young-Soo Han stood in the command center of the EDS Indomitable, watching displays that showed the battlefield below. The starship hung in orbit above Talos Prime, and from this height, the war looked like a game played with tiny pieces. But Young-Soo knew better. Each dot on those screens was a life. Each cluster was a battle for survival. The resonance disruptors are working beyond expectations, he said to Captain Mirai Song, who commanded the Indomitable. Shield failure rate is 98% within a 5-kilometer radius. Mirai nodded, her eyes never leaving the displays. She was younger than Young-Soo expected for a starship captain, maybe 35, but her reputation was solid. How long until the Vraxians adapt? That is the question, Young-Soo admitted. Their technology is old, very old. Changing it will require them to understand principles they have forgotten. Days at least, maybe weeks. Then we use the time we have, Mirai said. She touched her communication panel. All ground units, this is Indomitable. The enemy is retreating to their landing zones. Do not let them regroup. Press the advantage. On the surface, Bomi's platoon was already moving forward. The fear that had gripped them yesterday was gone, replaced by grim determination. They advanced through the mountain pass, stepping over Vraxian bodies, their weapons ready. Movement ahead, Jinho called out. Looks like a command post. Bomi signaled for the platoon to spread out. They approached carefully, using cover, moving like they had been taught. A group of Vraxian officers stood around a holographic display, their mandibles clicking frantically. They were arguing, panic clear in their body language. When they saw the humans approaching, one of them raised a weapon. Bomi fired first. The Vraxian fell without its shield to protect it. The other scattered, running for a nearby transport. Cease fire, Bomi commanded. Let them run. I want them to spread fear. Sunwoo looked at her with surprise. We should capture them. No, Bomi said. We should let them tell their friends what happened here. Fear is a weapon too. The Vraxians fled in their transport, leaving their command post behind. Bomi's team secured it and called for intelligence officers. The holographic display showed something interesting. It was a tactical map showing Vraxian positions across the entire colony. And according to the map, there were more landing zones. More forces. The attack on Talos Prime was bigger than anyone had thought. Mireille received the intelligence data and frowned. They brought enough forces to conquer 3 colony worlds. This was not a raid. This was an invasion. Young-Su pulled up additional data on his screen. The Vraxian Horde is one of the largest military powers in this sector. If they came in force, it means they are testing us. They want to see if the resonance disruptors were luck or if we can replicate them. Then we show them it was not luck, Mireille said. She opened a channel to the other human ships in orbit. All vessels deploy additional disruptor units to all active combat zones. I want those shields down everywhere. The battle for Talos Prime raged for another 2 days. Each time the Vraxians tried to attack, they found their shields failing. Each time they tried to regroup, human forces struck with precision. The aliens had more numbers. They had better weapons. But without their shields, they were vulnerable in a way they had not been for thousands of years. On the 3rd day, something changed. Bomi was leading her platoon through the colony's agricultural district when her radio crackled with panicked voices. All units, be advised, enemy shields are holding in Sector 7. Repeat, disruptors are ineffective in Sector 7. Young-Su's voice came through moments later. They adapted faster than projected. The Vraxians in Sector 7 have modified their shield frequencies. Our disruptors cannot lock on. Mireille's response was calm. Then we adapt too. Doctor, how long to reprogram the disruptors? 4 hours minimum, Young-Su said. But by then they might share the new frequency with all their forces. Bomi listened to the exchange and made a decision. This is Lieutenant Choi. I am closest to Sector 7. What are my orders? There was a pause. Then Mireille spoke. The enemy forces in Sector 7 are preparing to break through to the evacuation zones. If they succeed, thousands of civilians will be trapped. You need to delay them. Delay them how? Bomi asked. Our weapons are useless against their shields. Figure it out, Lieutenant, Mireille said. You have 4 hours. Bomi looked at her platoon. Jinho was checking his ammunition. Sunwoo was staring at her, waiting for orders. The others were tired, injured, running on nothing but determination. And now she was being asked to fight enemies whose shields worked again. Gather around, she said quietly. Her soldiers formed a circle, crouching low. The shields are back online. We cannot shoot through them, but we are humans, and humans have been fighting impossible battles since we lived in caves. So we are going to remember something the Vraxians forgot. You do not need fancy technology to win. You need creativity. Jinho smiled grimly. What is the plan? The aliens rely on their shields, Bomi said. They walk in the open because they think they are invincible. So we do not fight them directly. We fight the ground they walk on. She pulled up a map on her tactical pad. Sector 7 was mostly industrial warehouses, large buildings, heavy equipment, and lots of things that could explode if used correctly. 20 minutes later, Bomi's platoon was positioned throughout the sector. They had raided an industrial supply depot and gathered everything useful. Fuel cells, chemical tanks, construction explosives. Nothing that could penetrate shields, but plenty that could change the battlefield. The Vraxian force marched into Sector 7 with confidence. Their shields glowed bright again, and their officers clicked orders with renewed arrogance. They had adapted. The human trick had failed. Now they would finish this invasion. The first warehouse exploded when they were halfway through the street. Not from a missile or grenade. It exploded because Jinho had rigged every fuel cell in the building to overload at once. The blast did not penetrate shields, but it brought the entire structure down. Tons of metal and concrete crashed onto the Vraxian column. Shields could stop bullets and energy weapons. They could not stop a building. The second trap was a chemical spill. Sunwoo and 2 other soldiers had opened every corrosive container they could find and spread the contents across an intersection. When the Vraxians walked through, the chemicals ate at the ground. The pavement collapsed, dropping them into the storm drains below. The third trap was fire. Bomi had learned something interesting about Vraxian shields. They were designed to stop fast-moving projectiles and energy beams. But heat? Heat moved slowly, spreading through air and material. The shields could not block it efficiently. So when her platoon ignited a fuel depot, The resulting firestorm cooked the Vraxians inside their own shields. For 4 hours, Bomi's platoon harassed and delayed the Vraxian force. They never fired a shot. They never engaged directly. They simply used the environment as a weapon, turning the industrial sector into a deadly maze. The Vraxians grew frustrated, then angry, then afraid. They were supposed to be the superior force. They had the better technology. But these humans kept hurting them without ever fighting fair. Young-Su worked frantically aboard the Indomitable, reprogramming the resonance disruptors. It was not easy. The new shield frequencies were sophisticated, layered in ways the old ones had not been. But humans had something the Vraxians did not. Humans had spent 3 months doing nothing but studying shield technology. They understood it now, maybe better than the aliens who used it. Got it, Young-Su said suddenly. New programming is ready. Uploading to all disruptor units now. On the ground, Bomi saw the metallic spheres flicker and hum with a new tone. The Vraxian shields wavered, then failed. All units' shields are down, Mireille announced. Finish them. The battle ended quickly after that. Without shields, the Vraxians broke and ran. They retreated to their ships and fled into orbit, then jumped to hyperspace without looking back. The mighty Vraxian horde, which had come to conquer, left Talos Prime in defeat. Bomi sat on a pile of rubble, her rifle across her knees. Sun Wu collapsed next to her, laughing with exhaustion and relief. Jinho was already asleep, his back against a wall. Mireille's voice came through the radio one final time. All ground forces, this is Indomitable. The colony is secure. Civilian evacuation is complete. You did well. You all did very well. Bomi looked up at the sky where the Indomitable hung like a silver star. She thought about the battle, about the soldiers they had lost, about the Vraxians who had fled in terror. 3 days ago, the aliens had laughed at human weapons. They had mocked Earth's primitive technology. Now the battlefield was silent except for the wind moving through broken buildings. That silence spoke louder than any words. It said that humanity had learned an important truth. You did not win wars with the best weapons. You won wars with the best warriors. And humans, for all their primitive technology, knew how to be warriors. News of the battle spread across the galactic networks within hours. Every species heard the same story. The humans had found a weakness in shield technology. The invincible defenses that had protected the galaxy for 10,000 years were suddenly vulnerable. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Every species sent representatives. Some came in fear, others came in anger. All of them came because their entire military doctrine had become obsolete overnight. Admiral Kyung-Suk Jeon stood outside the council chamber, adjusting her uniform one last time. She was Earth's chief of naval operations, a position that had existed for less than a year. Before the Talos Prime incident, humanity had no real navy. Now they were building warships as fast as their factories could work. Next to her stood scientist Ji-won Ryu, a small woman with sharp eyes and hair pulled back in a tight bun. She carried a data case that contained information that would change the galaxy. Or destroy Earth, possibly both. Are you ready for this? Kyung-Suk asked her. Ji-won smiled slightly. No, but we are doing it anyway. The doors opened and they walked into chaos. The chamber was filled with arguing aliens. Voices in 100 languages overlapped into meaningless noise. Kyung-Suk saw Vormak on his high throne, his red scales darker than she remembered, as if he had been ill. General Silth sat rigid in her seat, mandibles clicking with barely controlled rage. Ambassador Tae-Yang Lee was already there, standing in the center platform where he had stood 3 months ago. He looked older now, more tired, but also more confident. Earth had earned respect through blood and innovation. That changed things. Order! Vormak's voice boomed through the chamber. The arguing stopped. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to the human delegation. The humans will explain their weapon, the one that threatens everything we have built. Kyung-Suk stepped forward, her boots echoing in the sudden silence. High Chieftain, members of the Council, we did not create this technology to threaten you. We created it to survive. Your own members attacked our colony world without provocation. We defended ourselves. Nothing more. You broke the shields, Silth clicked furiously. Technology that has protected this galaxy for 10,000 years. You rendered it useless. Do you understand what you have done? We understand better than you, Ji-won said quietly, stepping up beside Kyung-Suk. And that is the problem. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above them, showing complex mathematical equations and energy frequency patterns. Most of the aliens leaned forward, studying the data with intense interest. For 3 months, we studied every piece of information available about galactic shield technology, Ji-Wan explained. We analyzed combat footage. We examined wreckage from old battles. We even bought civilian shield generators on the black market and took them apart piece by piece. That is illegal, one alien council member shouted. So is invading our colony, Kyung-suk replied coldly. But here we are, Ji-Wan continued. What we discovered was fascinating. All of you, every single species in this chamber, use exactly the same shield design. Oh, you modify it slightly. You adjust power output. You change the physical appearance. But at its core, every shield in the galaxy operates on the same frequency patterns, the same fundamental principles. Why is that? The question hung in the air. No one answered. We found the answer in your own histories, Ji-Wan said. She changed the hologram to show an image of a city, ancient and alien with architecture that hurt to look at. 10,000 years ago, a species called the Architects gave your ancestors a gift. Shield technology, faster than light travel, energy weapons. They uplifted you from primitive civilizations to spacefaring powers in a single generation. The Architects saved us, Vormak said slowly. They gave us the tools to explore the galaxy. To build the coalition. They also doomed you, Ji-Wan said, because after receiving that gift, none of you ever innovated beyond it. Why would you? The technology worked perfectly. It was so far beyond what you had that there was no need to improve it. Generation after generation, you simply used what the Architects gave you. You never questioned it. You never tried to make it better. You became dependent on technology you did not truly understand. The chamber was silent now. Every alien was staring at the humans with a mixture of emotions. Fear, anger, and something worse. Recognition. Technological stagnation, Kyung-suk said. For 10,000 years you have been using the same weapons, the same shields, the same ship designs. Minor variations, but nothing fundamentally new. You forgot how to be creative, how to adapt, how to solve problems that your inherited technology could not fix. And humanity? Silth clicked quietly. What is different about humanity? We had nothing, Ji-Wan said simply. The Architects never came to Earth. We never received their gift. So we had to figure out everything ourselves. Fire, tools, agriculture, industry, spaceflight, nuclear power. We failed 1,000 times for every success. But we learned something you forgot. We learned how to innovate. She changed the hologram again, showing the resonance disruptor. This device does not penetrate your shields. It does not overpower them. It simply vibrates at frequencies that destabilize the harmonic patterns that make shields work. It is not complicated. Any species could have invented it thousands of years ago. But none of you did because you were too busy using what you already had. You are saying we grew lazy, Vormak said, his voice dangerous. We are saying you grew comfortable, Kyung-suk corrected, and comfort is the enemy of progress. Humanity did not have the luxury of comfort. We have been fighting to survive since we climbed down from trees. That desperation made us creative, made us dangerous, made us able to see weaknesses in your perfect technology. Tae Yang spoke for the first time. The resonance disruptor was not meant as a weapon against the Council. It was meant to level the battlefield against one aggressive species. But the fact that it works on all your shields should tell you something important. You are all vulnerable. Every ship, every station, every military installation. If we could figure this out in 3 months, imagine what could happen if a hostile species had years to study your technology. The implications of those words rippled through the chamber like a wave. Alien representatives began talking urgently to each other. Some looked frightened. Others looked angry. A few looked resigned as if they had always known this day would come. What do you want? Vormak asked finally. You came here to reveal this information. You could have kept it secret. Used it as leverage. Why tell us? Kyung-suk took a breath. This was the critical moment. Because we are not interested in conquest. Earth wants the same thing we wanted 3 months ago. Partnership, respect, a place in the galaxy as equals. But we will not beg for it. We will not serve as protectorates. We offer a deal. What deal? Silth clicked. Earth will share the principles behind the resonance disruptor, Ji-Wan said. We will help your scientists understand how to create countermeasures. New shield frequencies, better defensive systems. In exchange, you will accept humanity as full members of the Galactic Coalition, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. And if we refuse, Formak asked, then we keep the technology to ourselves, Kyung-suk said. And Earth will defend its interests with every tool at its disposal. Including tools that make your shields worthless. It was not quite a threat, but it was close enough. The chamber erupted in argument again. Some aliens wanted to accept the deal immediately. Others demanded that Earth be forced to share the technology. A few suggested that Earth should be invaded and their scientists captured. Tai Yang let them argue for several minutes. Then he raised his hand for silence. May I speak plainly? Formak nodded, looking tired. The galaxy is facing a choice, Tai Yang said. You can treat Earth as an enemy. Try to force us to submit. Maybe you succeed. Maybe you destroy our planet and take our technology. But that will not solve your fundamental problem. The weakness in your shields is now public knowledge. We sent this information to every independent species in the galaxy before we came here today. The chamber exploded in outrage. Formak rose from his throne, rage on his face. You did what? We ensured that the truth could not be contained, Tai Yang said calmly. By now 1,000 species know that galactic shields are vulnerable. Some of them will start developing their own countermeasures. Some already have, probably. You cannot stop that. What you can do is work with the species that figured it out first, the species that is offering to help you adapt. Kyung-suk stepped forward. Or you can waste time being angry at us for exposing a weakness that already existed. Your choice. The vote took 3 hours. It was not unanimous. Several species voted against accepting Earth's deal. The Vraxian horde refused to even participate, their representative leaving in disgust. But in the end, enough members saw the logic. Earth would become a full member of the Galactic Coalition. As Kyung-suk, Ji-won, and Tai Yang left the chamber, they passed by Vormak. The High Chieftain stood in their path, his massive form blocking the doorway. You have made powerful enemies today, he said quietly. Species that will never forgive you for this humiliation. Then we will deal with them, Kyung-suk said. Just like we dealt with the Vraxians. Formak studied her for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he laughed. It was not a kind laugh, but it was genuine. You humans are either very brave or very foolish. I have not decided which. Maybe both, Tai Yang said with a slight smile. 6 months after Talos Prime, Fleet Admiral Insu Bayek stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiance, watching enemy ships appear on his tactical display. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. The largest hostile fleet humanity had ever faced. Identification confirmed, his tactical officer reported. Krethian Empire forces, also detecting Vraxian ships, Sulcorian destroyers, and at least 3 other species. They are broadcasting a joint declaration. Play it, Insu commanded. Vormak's face appeared on the main screen. The High Chieftain looked different than he had at the council. Harder, more determined. Behind him stood representatives of a dozen species, all wearing expressions of cold resolve. Humanity, Vormak began, you have been declared a threat to galactic stability. Your dangerous technology threatens the peace that has existed for thousands of years. This coalition has assembled to neutralize that threat. Surrender now and your world will be spared. Resist and we will reduce Earth to dust. The transmission ended. Insu studied the fleet on his display, calculating odds and strategies. Captain Daewon Kim stood beside him, promoted after his actions on Talos Prime. Commander Hyejin Park was at the engineering station, already running simulations. They brought everything, Daewon said quietly. This is not a raid or a test. This is an extermination fleet. Yes, Insu agreed. They are scared. Scared species make desperate choices. Captain Mi-Rae Song's voice came through from the Indomitable, positioned on the fleet's right flank. Admiral, we are outnumbered 20 to 1. Even with the disruptors, those are impossible odds. Nothing is impossible, Insu replied. Just very difficult. All ships prepare for combat, deploy disruptor satellites, and activate Protocol Mongoose. Daewon raised an eyebrow. Mongoose, sir? Something we learned from studying Earth history, Insu said with a slight smile. A mongoose is a small animal. When it fights a cobra, it does not try to match the snake's venom. It uses speed, adaptability, and the cobra's own aggression against it. We are the mongoose. They are the cobra. On Earth, billions of people watched the battle prepare to unfold. Every screen showed the tactical situation, the massive alien fleet surrounding humanity's small defensive force. It looked hopeless, like watching a storm about to swallow a candle flame. But something had changed in humanity over the past 6 months. The fear was still there, but it was mixed with something else now. Pride, determination, the knowledge that they had faced impossible odds before and won. In her apartment in Seoul, Bomi Choi watched the news with Jin Ho and Sun Woo. They had been given leave after Talos Prime, but all three had volunteered to return to active duty. They were scheduled to ship out tomorrow to join the defense of Earth's outer colonies. "Think we will win?" Sun Woo asked quietly. "We are human," Bomi said simply. "We always find a way." The battle began without ceremony or warning. The alien coalition fleet attacked in waves, their ships moving in perfect formation. They had learned from Talos Prime. Their shields were operating on new frequencies changed and modified to resist the disruptors. The first wave struck the human defensive line. Ships exploded. Defensive satellites were destroyed. For a moment, it looked like Vormak's prediction would come true. Earth's fleet would be swept aside like leaves in a hurricane. Then Insu gave his next order. "All ships scatter. Activate Protocol Mongoose Phase 2. The human fleet broke formation. Instead of fighting as a unified line, each ship began moving independently, using irregular patterns and unpredictable maneuvers. They did not try to match the alien formation. They simply refused to be where the enemy expected them to be." The alien fleet hesitated, confused. Their perfect formation suddenly had no targets. They began breaking apart, trying to chase individual human ships. That was exactly what Insu wanted. "Phase 3, he commanded. "All ships engage targets of opportunity. Remember your training. We do not need to destroy them. We need to disrupt them." What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. Human ships did not try to win direct confrontations. Instead, they used tactics that the aliens had never seen before. EMP mines that disabled ship systems without destroying them. Cyber warfare programs that invaded alien computers and created chaos. Drone swarms that obscured sensors and created false targets. Haijin had spent 6 months studying not just shield technology, but every aspect of galactic military doctrine. She found the same pattern everywhere. Stagnation, predictability. Species that fought the same way they had fought for thousands of years because that way had always worked. So humanity did the unexpected. They did not fight fair. They did not follow the established rules of warfare. They fought like humans had always fought, using every advantage and exploiting every weakness. The alien coalition fleet had better weapons, better shields, better ships, but they had forgotten how to adapt, how to respond to an enemy that refused to fight the way battles were supposed to be fought. Mirei's voice came through the command channel. "Admiral, the Crethean flagship is moving to a predictable attack vector. Permission to execute Tactic 7? Granted," Insu replied. The Indomitable appeared to run from the Crethean flagship, leading it on a chase through a debris field. The massive alien warship followed confidently, shields bright and weapons charged. It did not notice the pattern of debris, did not realize it was following a carefully planned route. When the Indomitable cleared the field, the Crethean flagship found itself surrounded by dormant human minds. They activated simultaneously, not trying to penetrate shields, but releasing electromagnetic pulses that overloaded the ship's sensors and communication systems. Blind and deaf, the flagship drifted helplessly while smaller human vessels attached boarding pods to its hull. Human Marines poured into the ship not to kill but to capture. Within an hour, the flagship was under human control, its crew disarmed and secured in their own cargo bays. Vormak watched from his command ship as his carefully assembled coalition fleet was torn apart by tactics he could not counter. The humans were not winning through superior firepower. They were winning through creativity, through adaptation, through a refusal to accept the galaxy's rules about how battles should be fought. "This is insane," General Silth clicked in frustration on a shared command channel. "They are not following any tactical doctrine. How do we counter something that has no pattern?" "You cannot," Vormak said quietly, and for the first time, he felt something he had not experienced in decades. Fear. Real fear. Young Suhan worked frantically aboard the Defiance, coordinating the cyber warfare efforts. He had recruited hackers from Earth, brilliant minds who had spent their lives breaking into supposedly secure systems. Now they were breaking into alien computers, spreading chaos and confusion. Their command protocols are ancient, one hacker reported with something like joy in her voice. They have not updated their security in thousands of years. It is like breaking into a museum. Then rob the museum, Young-Soo said. Disrupt their communications. Make them unable to coordinate. The alien fleet began to fracture. Ships lost contact with their commanders. Orders became confused. Some ships fired on their own allies by mistake. The perfect coalition was coming apart at the seams. Daewon coordinated the defensive positions, directing human ships to protect critical locations while letting less important areas appear vulnerable. It was psychological warfare on a massive scale. Make the enemy think they are winning in places that do not matter, while protecting what actually needs protection. On Earth, people watched in amazement as the tactical displays showed the tide turning. The massive alien fleet was not being destroyed. It was being defeated through confusion, through disruption, through tactics that made no sense to species raised on 10,000 years of predictable warfare. Then In-Soo gave the order that would define the battle. All ships cease offensive operations. Open hailing frequencies to all enemy vessels. Offer terms. His officers stared at him in shock. Sir, we are winning, Daewon said. Why stop now? Because we do not need to kill them, In-Soo said quietly. We need to teach them. The broadcast went out to every ship in the alien fleet. It was simple and direct. Attention coalition forces. Your fleet is defeated. Your command structures are disrupted. Your ships are disabled. But you are not destroyed. Humanity did not come here to conquer. We came to defend. Lower your weapons. Accept that this battle is over, and no one else needs to die. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then one by one, alien ships began lowering their weapons. Some tried to flee and were allowed to leave. Others simply stopped fighting and waited. The massive fleet that had come to exterminate humanity sat in space, defeated but alive. Vormak's ship was one of the last to surrender. The High Chieftain appeared on In-Soo's screen, his face a mixture of emotions too complex to name. You could have destroyed us, Vormak said. Yes, In-Soo agreed. But what would that prove? That we can kill? Everyone knows that. We wanted to prove something different. What? That we can win without becoming monsters. That strength and mercy are not opposites. That humanity deserves respect not because we are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, but because we know when to be dangerous and when to be kind.